So we are on podcast number 3. Today we've got Carrie Rose from Rise at 7. And I think what we're trying to kind of get out of today is figuring out how you can play with the big boys and kind of essentially from a standing start get into the ring and stand toe to toe with some of the biggest players in the industry, which I think anyone listening will agree Rise at 7 are doing it right now and doing it very, very successfully. So, Carrie, do you want to tell us how you're doing it? Do you want to share all your secrets?
Sure, happily. Founded Rise at 7 a year ago. It was like a year ago last week, so we're only 12 months old.
Happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you. And we've just grown at an insane rate, So obviously it started off just me and Kenrai on our own. Our revenue was about $3,000 a month. So it was not enough to cover both of our salaries at all. But I don't know, I think we're taking about $300,000 a month now. It's insane, absolutely insane. We've grown to about 32 staff and growing even further, all in the space of 12 months. So it's been a crazy, crazy story. But we was obviously just talking then about like, what is it? And I think we launched Rise at 7 before Rise at 7 was born, and that was because we built our personal brand. So myself and Kenrai, who founded the agency, Kenrai specialises in the SEO side. I always specialise in the PR and creative side. And us joining together was, number one, the secret sauce. And then number 2 was building our personal brand way before Rise at 7 even started. Helped us so that when we literally did that tweet of, by the way, guys, we've just launched an agency today, it kicked off. It went mad. Everyone was like, oh my God.
So did you know, like in your mind, you was building your personal brand in preparation for that? Or was that just kind of naturally part of your personality, Kenrai's personality, that actually, by the time you decided to do it, it was already there and it was like, bloody hell, we've got this.
Yeah, exactly it. So I didn't ever know I was going to start an agency. I always thought one day I might own a business, but I didn't know what. I've like flicked around with eyelash brands. I've flicked around all sorts I've thought about. But then we literally, from the day that I decided, okay, I want to start an agency, it took us 4 weeks. We sat in my front room. I built the website myself, just on WordPress, and we just launched it. So there was no planning. Yes, I did a business plan and stuff like that because I applied for the apprentice. There's a whole backstory of me trying to get on TV, basically. And actually, one of my first gigs, I say gigs, like talking on stage, was at Brighton SEO, and that was just as I launched Rise at 7. So we launched Rise at 7 in June, July. Yeah, it was June. And then August, I went to Brighton SEO and stood on stage, and the room was packed. And I think that was the first time that I actually had something to say to people, and people wanted to hear it. So that's why it was like packed. But it's because I'd built up that personal brand and tweeting a lot and writing LinkedIn statuses that everyone couldn't wait to see me or what I had to say. So yeah, that it fell into place that we built our personal brand, not planned, but that's what helped us massively.
Because I think Aidan, we were talking just before about the way I think Rise at 7 has started to shake up kind of a bit of the agency world in this.
Yeah.
I think there's no denying that culture plays a huge part within digital, purely because there's such a still quite a shallow pool of talent.
Yeah.
So, you're only going to get the best talent if you've got the right culture and the right environment for people to work. But I don't think anyone's really done it in the way that you guys have. Mm-hmm. And I think I know people are already starting to take notice, and you guys are getting the plaudits as kind of you should. But like, how do you see the future of agencies, especially within digital, kind of changing as a result of that? I mean, I know us, and I'm not ashamed to say it, is we're trying to replicate a little bit what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
What do you think other people are going to do?
I think the same. We're seeing it already, which is not a bad thing. I love that. I love that people, because I did the same. I looked at other agencies and I learned from them. But what Kenrai always said, he said, do you know what the difference is between us, Carrie? I said, what? He said, in SEO, it's a bit of a circle, isn't it? We're all stuck in this box and we all look at each other and we learn off each other. But what I did is I looked at advertising agencies, I looked at creative agencies, and I took what they do and brought it into SEO for the first time. And even from an ideas point of view, campaigns, marketing, etc. So when you look at Adam and Eve or Saatchi and Saatchi, the big advertising agencies, there's a few things that they do, and that's you really sign up to an advertising agency because you want to work with the founder. It's the advertising agencies are always named after the founder because you want to work with them. So we knew the founders, we had to build them up. So we copied that advertising agency strategy to build up myself and Kenrai and took that in SEO. And then the second thing is with inspiration. I think everybody, like I said, looks internal and copies each other or takes inspiration from everybody. And I thought, okay, I know what they all do. I knew there was a saying actually that Ken Wright says, and he said, the best thing anyone can do is know yourself and know your competitors, know who your enemy is, and every time you'll win. You've got to know yourself, you've got to know your enemy, and every single time you'll win. And for one time, I went into a pitch at Halfords as an example, and I thought, right, I had 3 members of staff, so I weren't a big agency, and I remember going in there and saying, I know what 10 other agencies are going to tell you tomorrow, like whether they've been in or anything to pitch. I know it. I could write down into a script, because I do. I've been at 3 other agencies and I know they say the same thing every single time. So I told them what they would say, and then I said, but instead I'm going to show you something different. And that's when I win. And it's because I knew who I was, and I knew what they was, and I just basically do something different to what they would ever say. So I think the kind of things that might change in this industry is, instead of staying in the circle, I think what we're going to see is creative agencies start touching into search, or even paid, and advertising, etc., because they're dying out. They're dying out faster, and we're growing. So digital is growing so much faster, whereas traditional TV, advertising, and all that sort of stuff. So they're going to start touching into our circle for the first time, but that's only going to amplify everything that we do, which is good.
I think you nailed on there, because when you start to look at other industries and pull that kind of together, it falls perfectly in line with the buzzword that's always been a buzzword for the past 50 years is the omnichannel kind of approach.
Yeah.
But as technologies are moving, everything is becoming a little bit more omnichannel, and things like that. So I remember back in the day, my history is you'd get a PPC contract, you'd get an SEO contract, you know, SEO you'd have your PR element in there, you'd have your content element in there, and it was all kind of very kind of siloed. Whereas everything's becoming a lot more kind of collaborative, and there's things. And I think one thing that I've seen about the campaigns that you guys push out is, you know, it's not just creative PR, it's not just creative SEO. It's, you're not on the surface of it. Is if you've got to sell it and wrap it up in a bubble, that might be, but you know, you're touching the social element. You're touching literally every kind of journey, every point of that user's journey, to be able to kind of make that piece as good as it kind of can be. And it's like, how do you think agencies are going to be able to kind of respond to that? Because that's the bit that I think a lot of people have really struggled to kind of get on board. I
think I kind of drew a picture the other day, and I thought, what is it that I'm seeing in the industry that's seeing a change? And if I draw out, say, a marketing mix, so in Misguided, as an example, you might have the SEO manager, and then you have your brand, your social, your content, your creative, and then your technical. All of these people having a say around a board table. But the people, or the person with the least amount of say, or in history, was the SEO guy. The SEO guy was just the guy that put the keywords in the content. That's what everyone thought they was. But when you actually look into the GA or the revenue, SEO makes the most money. Simple. That's what we knew. SEO makes the most money, but they had the least say. So what we thought is, we wanted for the first time to give SEO a voice, the SEO manager, the SEO director a voice. So what we did is we tied creative with search together, and we went to that SEO manager and said, do you want a voice? Because we can give you a voice. We can put you on that table and make you actually the head of it, because we know you make the most money, but nobody else does, because PPC think they do, or creative think they do, or brand, or whatever it is. And for once, we basically went in, Rise at 7 went into these brands and said, SEO manager, we're going to do something sexy for you and make you sexy for the first time. And they love it. That's what they love. They love that for once.
Making SEO sexy. Carrie Rose making SEO sexy then since 2019.
Exactly. And that's kind of where it ticked. I said, that's what I need to do. I need to make that SEO guy sexy for the first time, because nobody really looked at him as that. But actually, he was making the most money. And now he is, especially like with all this going on. Like we won Kath Kidson's 4 months ago. And SEO is the biggest channel for them now, because the high street is dead. They've closed every single store. I think there was about 70 stores. Closed every single one of them. They're not making any money through retail. They've pulled PPC budgets. The biggest way for them to make money is SEO. So now the SEO guy who didn't have a say before has got loads of say. And they're like, help. And we're like, hi. So yeah.
That's interesting, because that shows, I mean, that's the development of the internal boardroom as well.
Exactly.
So if we kind of pull out a couple of bits from that in terms of what's been the key driver from Rise at 7 in terms of being able to get straight in there, is that one thing I pulled out there is just by being able to turn around and say, I know exactly what everyone else is going to do.
Yeah.
And they're wrong.
Yeah.
Is that what you're summarising?
Exactly, yeah. And one advantage that we had is Ken Wright went in-house for a few months, about 6 months, just before we launched the agency. And he worked for Stratstone, so that was Evans Orshaw, BMW, a couple of other car retailers. And he went through pitch process where he was hiring and onboarding agencies. He had like PPC, SEO, a couple of others, PR and stuff. And what he did is he was able to see during that process what everybody else was saying. And he said, Carrie, you wouldn't believe it. He said, everyone says the same thing. He says, you know when you have that process slide of this is how we do things? He said, they're all the same. He said, you wouldn't believe they're all the same. And he said, for big brands that go through these processes, like pitch process every single time, he says, you usually have like an about us thing, and then you go into case studies, and then you talk about the strategy, blah, blah. And he says, it's so mundane and so boring. And he said, for a big brand like us, we just want someone to come in and be different. So we knew what everybody else was saying, because I've done it a million times at Edit, at Sticky Eyes, Branded 3, and I knew what I said every single time, and I thought, I'm going to say something different. And now we don't ever talk about ourselves. I don't need to. I don't need to say how good I am.
You've been doing it for the past 10 years.
Yeah.
So you don't need to tell someone something you already know.
You will never look at exactly. You will never look at one of our decks and say, you know, we're the best in the Yorkshire or best in country or at what we do. I don't need to show it. I just need to show it. So I don't say any of those sentences. I don't kind of show our process. I just show that this is how we do things and this is the results of it. And they're like, how? And I'm like, pay, and we'll show you. That's literally, it's like the secret, because if we give too much away, if we keep saying we're the best at this, and you're not the best because you're having to say it, whereas everyone knows you are when you don't have to say it.
You've obviously kind of had kind of the experience of the other lead agencies, some pretty big decent ones, Branded 3, Edit, Sticky Eyes. Is what did you learn from them that have kind of really made sure you continue and put into Rise at 7, or make sure that you kind of avoid?
Yeah.
Time, you know, like what has that experience done for you to kind of?
I've learned so much during that time, and for anybody that is like starting in the industry, I always advise them to go into a big agency because you take so much. I think especially hiring staff as well. I've hired some staff from smaller agencies and some people from bigger agencies, and you do see the difference. You do see the difference of what they bring. So the sort of things that I kind of learned working in a big agency like that is, from day one working at an agency like Branded 3, is confidence. I remember turning up to Brighton SEO, one of the biggest search conferences, and I got sent there and just said, go to that conference, go learn something. And I didn't have a clue about it. I just had my little backpack on, and I remember...
just excited to go to Brighton.
Yeah, I was like, I just want a weekend away, yeah. And I went and had a good time, and I remember being sat there, and there was some guy, and he was like, what's your name? I said, my name's Carrie, and I was making friends at a conference because I was on my own. And he was like, where do you work? I said, I've only just started there. I'm like 2 months in, but it's a place called Branded 3, if you've heard of it. And he was like, you work at Branded 3? And I was like, yeah. He went, shut up. I was like, what? He went, can I shake your hand? I've always wanted to meet someone at Branded 3. And I remember that moment thinking, hey, why are we that big? I remember thinking that, like, why do you want to shake my hand? And then I realised we was quite big in search and everybody looked up to us. We had one of the best blogs that people, if you search for anything SEO wise, we always ranked, or, you know, we drove a lot of traffic for it. So we was famous in what we did, along with, you know, the likes of Sticky Eyes and Epiphany. And I just remember feeling so confident about that. And that day that I built that confidence of knowing that I worked for one of the best agencies, I went into pitches at, 21 years old with 3 months experience and won Confused.com. Because I had a load of confidence. And I was like, I work at the best agency in the world. That's what I remember feeling that. And that's one thing that I took away, and I wanted to create that for Rise at 7. So when I was, earning $3,000 revenue as a business and it was me and Ken, right, I needed that confidence to go into someone like Misguided, which I did in like 6 weeks in, and go, I can win this. And I had that because I was building up hoping to build up one of the biggest agencies. So I think that confidence side of being able to talk to big brands and working at an agency that people know who you were. No one knew who we were. Rise at 7, we was a 2-man agency in Sheffield. No one gave a shit about us. But obviously we had to build that up and say, yeah, you should give a shit about us because this is what we're going to be. And I think building that confidence in us and our staff has just helped us grow to where we are today. So I think the confidence of being able to speak to big brands and stuff has just made a massive difference.
I think that's brilliant. I remember having a chat with Neil Aston, who's currently at Jenny Fair.
Yeah.
And it was when he just moved over there, and I just left Epiphany. And I remember having a chat, and we was literally walking through the Leeds City Centre, and we said this, and we was like, okay, right, well, you're at a new agency. I was going out on my own, and it was like, what's it like going in and starting from scratch again? And we both kind of said that, and we was looking and was like, well, you kind of don't realise how good you are until you've got to start again.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you've been into these conversations and you're into these pitches, and you're absolutely blowing anyone else who's at your similar size out the water because of the confidence and the experience that you've got from these big guys.
Yeah, it's exactly it. And I think one thing, when I worked at Edit and Branded 3, I worked like that was my agency. And it weren't. I think I was on 25 grand a year, something like that. I worked my goddamn ass off, like literally. It was like it was mine. And I remember thinking, like, people used to say, you literally, it's like it's your business. And I'm like, I know, I was so passionate about it. I loved the clients, loved delivering the results. And they was like, why don't you just go do it for yourself? And I did freelance along the side and stuff like that, just to kind of, it was more from experience of, can I do this if I was on my own? Can I run a campaign from start to end on my own? You know, when you're in a big agency, you have project managers, content writers, you know, finance, all that sort of stuff helping you get to the end result. And when you go freelance or doing a startup company, you realise you don't have them and you have to do it all on your own. And I think that's one of the biggest things I learned. I think when I was at Edit, I was a bit, what do they call it, big bollock person.
Big bollocks.
Yeah, I was like, I thought I can run a campaign from start to end without you lot, you know, and I was going viral all the time. I was thinking I could do this on my own. And what I realised starting Rise at 7 is you can't do it on your own. And the biggest thing that I've learned starting this agency is what I'm shit at.
Yes.
Yeah, biggest thing, because I brag a lot about how good I am, but there is a million things that I'm shit at. Honestly, there really is. And
I could completely echo that.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect way of saying it. Because I used to go exactly the same. I used to be going to pictures at Epiphany.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I can do this. What are you doing here for?
Yeah.
My beast one was sales.
Yeah.
The sales guys, I was like, what do we need? We're doing all the work here.
Yeah.
Right? But you say you go on your own and you learn, there's a lot more to this than you thought previously.
Yeah. But I think that's what I did with partnering with Chemwright as an example. So with me, I was good at ideas. These were my skill sets that I knew I was strong at. I was good at ideas. I was good at running things from start to end, like project management, and marketing in terms of building a brand and just a general culture. The things I was shit at was finance, operations, putting processes in, but I'm not a process person. I hate processes.
I feel like you got the fun end of the deal.
Oh, I did, yeah. Definitely did. But one thing Chemwright always said to me, I will quote Chemwright a lot on this podcast because he's a very, very wise man, but one thing he always said is you always partner in business with somebody that can do the things you can't. Because what I think a lot of business owners do is they partner up with a mate and they go, oh, mate, should we do this together because we're just as good at each other? And actually, it's the wrong thing to do. If you're going to start up a business, you always think, right, I can do this, but what can't I do? Fill those gaps with somebody else and then you take it up. And Chemwright could do a lot of things that I couldn't and same vice versa. If you ever meet Chemwright, we're the complete opposite. Complete opposite people, personality, morals, goals, you name it, literally complete opposite people.
I love how something must have happened for you to mention morals. I'm not going to dig that into.
Mostly we're on the same path, but just the way that he thinks, the way that I think, and he says, Carrie, since partnering with you, he's like, you've made me see the world in a completely different light, and exactly the same with him. He makes me see the world, and it's unreal, and I think very similar to that whole team thing. I used to think I could do it all on my own, and what I've realised is all the things that I'm bad at, and actually I do need this person to help me out on this, and this person to help me out on this, and now more than ever I'm working as a team, whereas I used to work quite independent. I thought I could do it all on my own, and I can't. So I've took that from a big agency life to now, and it's massively helped me.
So you've obviously been in the industry a while,
yeah.
Right? You've smashed it within the last year, right? This industry is constantly getting new, fresh talent involved. Right? What advice would you be giving to anyone at the moment coming into the industry?
So first thing is try your hardest to go get into a big agency. Whether that's as an assistant, an exec, a work experience, an intern, whatever it is, try your hardest to get into a big agency. And the reason that I say that is you learn so much, you see so much. You get thrown into pitches with go compare. And, you know, you just graduated and you're like, shit. But those experiences are something that you can never get anywhere else in a small business or in-house or anything like that. And I think agency, you work across multiple industries. So, you know, I worked from, one day I used to work on Labrooks, and the next I worked on travel, and the next I was trying to build links to a vaping website. I've done it all, you know, and that was all when I graduated. And I think the agency experience is like no other. And I think if you decide to go in-house, if you decide to go and start your own company or go freelance, you will take so much away from that. So I would advise to get in big agency. And I know everybody's going to be thinking, oh, it's easy to say that. But, you know, right now, nobody can get a job. but it was similar when I graduated, in the sense of I needed to get into, my goal was to get a job at Sticky Eyes. I love Sticky Eyes. I remember looking at them thinking, I'll work there one day. And to get in there, I did a shit ton of free work. I did work experience. I wrote articles about horses for £6 an article, and I think it was like 1,000 words each time. I did a lot of shit for low pay, and you know, as a uni student, as a graduate, or whatever it was, I did a lot of stuff. And I know people go, oh, you know, you shouldn't ever do free work or anything like that. I had to. I didn't have any experience under my belt, and I know that if I went to knock on the door of Sticky Eyes, I needed to stand out. And I didn't do the typical process of, you know, sending in my CV to get the attention. I tweeted one of the directors. I just tweeted him. And, you know, the way that people are getting into Rise at 7, I receive about 300 CVs a month. It's unreal. And I can't look for every single one of them. Somebody actually gave us some feedback saying, oh, I applied for a job 2 weeks ago and you haven't replied. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so bad. We could get a bad review for that. And that's so, so bad. And it's because, number one, my inbox is 6,000 emails unread, which is so bad. I'm getting bombarded left, right and centre. And the people that I'm hiring, or the people that are standing out, or people that are sending me TikToks, they're sending me YouTube videos, they're sending me a GIF, or they've made a meme and they've like hired me. Somebody sent me some cupcakes the other day. I don't think you should spend any money or send gifts or anything like that, but I think just stand out and be different is the way to get noticed. So I'd advise that sort of stuff. And then the second bit of advice is go on social media. It's a bit brutal. It's a bit of a clique. It's a bit of a community that once you're in it, it's hard to kind of see the bigger picture. But I think being involved in the Twitter communities, LinkedIn, getting on Slack channels and just speaking to people, building relationships is the way that you're going to progress. And I learn so much every single day as a business owner from being on Twitter. And I think when you're so out of the role, like I don't really build links anymore, but because I'm on Twitter every single day, I learn so much still. Like I could definitely jump back into it and still keep going. So I think just be on social media, connecting, build relationships, go meet people for a drink, and you'll realise in 5 years' time how much further that will take you.
So on that one, because there's obviously, we talked right at the beginning about kind of your personal brand and how that's benefited you off the back of that. There's obviously a huge benefit to social media for that. But I think you touched on something really important there, which is the learning aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
And it's, I think just in society as a whole, I think be willing to learn and forcing yourself to learn and putting yourself in those situations where that information can keep coming in. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you place quite a bit of emphasis on that as well.
Yeah, I read everything. I listen to podcasts on the way to work. I read blog posts every single day. And when I'm going to sleep, I try to kind of like keep up to on LinkedIn. It is time consuming. I think those sort of things take over your life. I think work is my life though. And that's the hardest thing. I kind of struggle to have that work social life balance. But I think taking social media and finding ways to constantly better yourself. But I listen to not just people in SEO. I listen to the likes of Gary Vee or is it called Bobby something? Some podcast that Ken might send to me, but it's really good. I'll send you it.
Sounds great.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but I listen to it all the time. But I learn from other industries. I learn from other sort of businesses. Stephen Bartlett, I absolutely love him. But Gary Vee is my favourite. I love Gary Vee. Everybody hates him. I love him. But you just learn so much from listening to others. And conferences, I go to meet people, but I go to learn as well. So I'll sit and learn and listen to it all. So I think it's important to stay up to date and take in that knowledge and learn from people outside of your sphere, whether that's PPC or creative or whatever.
Cool. Spot on. So you guys are killing it currently. You've mentioned a couple of wins that you've had kind of recently over the past couple of months as well.
Yeah.
It's obviously quite a bit of a troubling time for a lot of businesses out there. So like, you know, not just within an agency, but generally speaking, like what advice would you be giving to people about the current climate and how to kind of actually be able to get ahead?
Yeah, sure. I think during this process I was speaking to Ken about and I said, you know, is it the fact that the economy's struggling that everyone's being hit and hard? And he said, no, is it? He said, this was coming, but it just came a lot faster. This was already coming and it just came 10 times faster. And I think the way that we've stood out or gained in this kind of stage, I guess, is that, yes, the agencies that fed the bullshit, the big agencies that had processes, the big agencies that, you know, said they did everything and ticked all the boxes, they're the ones that are dying out. And specialism and specialist agencies are the ones that are growing. And that's why we actually launched Rise 7, because we saw that coming. And I think you have to stay loyal and kind of knowing what you're about. You always have to, like we often think, should we be doing PPC? And every day I go, no, we shouldn't be doing PPC. That's not what we're good at. I haven't got a good person that could do PPC. I haven't. So that's not where I'm going in. I know that I'm awesome at these things.
If you want to pass them this way.
Yeah, speak to 43 clicks, they're good. So yeah, so you have to stick. I think what everyone will start to think is, oh, maybe we could do this and steal that from this or whatever it is, but you need to stay loyal to what you do and what you're best at. And that's what we'll do. We'll always stay a specialist in SEO, digital PR and creative. But I think the best piece of advice I can give anybody during this time is use the platforms that are free, social media, to get your case studies, your people, your culture, your business, who you are out there, because now more than ever, it is free. And, you know, you used to have to do adverts or interviews with press, but pay for it and all that sort of stuff, whereas social media can allow that to do for free. And that's literally what I've done. I've not paid for one bit of marketing since launching. I've not done anything. And I've just used social media. And I think what a lot of businesses have done recently is gone quite quiet, out of respect for other businesses, because, you know, you don't want to be the loud agency that, you know, is like pushing it in your face when everybody else is being made redundant. You have to be respectful in that way. But I think you have to still stay alive, or seem that you are alive. I'll give a good example. I was driving through my hometown recently, and it's like a zombie apocalypse, isn't it? There's no people, there's no businesses opening. And there was this car sales garage, and, you know, they have about 50 odd cars outside. And I know the owner, I know of him, and he does really well. He's minted, drives around a Range Rover, you know, all that sort of stuff. And obviously, because he's been locked down during all of this, I saw that there was dust all over his cars, all the lights was off, the shutters were down. And he's obviously not selling cars, but that is going to impact him later on in life. Keep the lights on. Keep the lights on, keep everybody shouting, keep everybody talking, make it look like you're absolutely fine. Because that's what people want. Businesses that are struggling are not going to hire another business that look like they're struggling.
Yeah.
They want to look like, okay, you're going to have our back, aren't you? You're going to get us to the next level. So you need to keep alive. And that's what I say to everybody. I was like, I'm not going to be the person that's pushing it into everyone's faces. Like, oh, look how well we're doing. We're trying to be respectful. And we're hiring people and giving people opportunities for jobs during the time where everyone's struggling for jobs. So you've got to see the benefit of that. But I think keep the light on and clean the dust off those cars and make it look like you're alive more than ever, because that's what other brands are looking for.
Makes perfect sense. I think you said something there that I thought was quite interesting, which was showing the personality, showing the brand and the culture and everything like that. I think there's a lot of people who've been hit hard by essentially just big business. So a lot of big businesses haven't really responded well to the frontline people. You know, people you know, essentially put things in place for the people who actually the end consumer. And I think, do you think that has been kind of part of the success that you guys have seen during lockdown, as well as because people can actually see you and realise that they're actually interacting with real human beings who've got personality, who've got a life that's beyond just kind of what they might see on social media as well? Yeah. Do you think that's kind of something that people should be looking at in terms of being able to break that wall between big business and small business? Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I think is a barrier that I've taken from other big agencies that I've worked at is account managers, project managers and all that. So they are a bit of a barrier, the salespeople basically. We don't have any of them. I've cut them straight out. We will never hire account managers or anyone like that. And I think because now they're just needing authentic people that actually give a shit. That actually give a shit about the results or anything like that. I think Gary Vee did something yesterday and he put the best marketing strategy is to care. And I've always said that. Yeah. And I'm like, it's so true. Like, and I think whenever a business comes to us and says, this is our problem, well, that's what we are as marketers. We fix problems. Yeah. And they come to us with a problem and I go in and go, this is how I'm going to fix it. This is how I'll do it. They always come out of that meeting and say, do you know what? It's different about you guys. I was like, what? He says, your enthusiasm. He says, you actually care. And I'm like, I do. And that's my biggest problem though, because I've got 48 clients and I care about every single one of them. And I'm like, oh my God. So during this whole pandemic,
I felt like I was trying to like save my own business as well as 48 others because I cared that much about them. So it is a problem, but I think what you have to have is create squads of people that care about certain accounts. So yeah, that I think cutting out the salespeople, the account managers, the project managers, the people that just basically pass on messages and go direct to the experts that actually give a shit and are going to deliver the results is helped us in that way.
Yeah, I think what you talked about then to actually caring in there is Rob Shaw on our last podcast made a really good point in terms of flexibility.
Yeah.
And he made a point that saying that a lot of the agencies out there who, when the pandemic hit and a lot of supply chains, a lot of businesses were disrupted, that flexibility that people were giving around contracts, people will now start to see that paid back tenfold as well. Is that something that you guys saw as well?
Yeah, 100%. So I've done work for near enough free once, just because I wanted to help them out. That's hard for a startup company because I have staff to pay and that's hard. But I also saw the benefit for me because the brand that we was working with was a big name. So very, very low contracts. We've also done deals on projects. So the fact that we started up and we've grown at an insane rate and we had to hire was so scary for us because we couldn't take on projects as such. We needed long-term commitments, 12 months. But during all of this, people was like, well, we can't sign into 12 months right now. We have to do a project or, 6 months or a trial. We've done loads of those. So we've had to kind of give them our trust and say, okay, we'll do a project or a trial with you. And I've also give them, when it comes to digital PR, we give a guaranteed links. So not many agencies do that. I literally say, I'll get you X amount of links. And if I don't, I'll keep going until I do. Because you come to us for the results, simple as. So that's what I think people love to see is because other agencies say, if we don't get it, you might need to pay us more money and we'll keep going and we'll try, Whereas we're like, you don't need to pay any more money. I told you I was going to get that, so I'll go do it.
It goes back down to solving the problem.
Exactly.
You've been paid to solve the problem. If you don't solve the problem, why should you be paid?
Yeah. So we've had to do that. It was hard for us as a startup company because, we needed the revenue and stuff. But what's happened is, for Misguided, as an example, we did a deal with them and paid them less than what we normally would charge. But now they called us up last week and offered us a lot more money. So it works when you build up that trust and say, I've got you. There was another case where a client came to us and said, we're struggling. SEO, organic is not doing well. It's not been doing well for 2 years. I've worked with a million agencies, told me that they'll be able to fix it and they haven't. And I'm about to go into a meeting and lose my job. Help me save my job. So it was less about the business. It was more about saving that person that job. And we was like, we've got you, don't you worry. And we turned it around for them. And they was like, oh my God, thank you. And
they still got the job.
Yeah. She's like a marketing director. And so there's those sort of cases where we do care. It is a personal thing. It's about the people, less about the business actually. It's more about the people and giving them, something to go and show their boss. So yeah, we've done a million and one things, but I agree with Rob Shaw on that one massively.
Brilliant. So what I'm gathering from that is keep the lights on.
Yeah.
Care.
Yeah.
And be flexible.
Yes.
If we could wrap it up in 3 words.
Exactly.